Welcome to TSAT. Today we are going to discuss a topic in science and technology regarding biofertilizers and biopesticides. Before discussing this, we need to know what biofertilizers and biopesticides are, and we need to know the significance of these biofertilizers and biopesticides. So, in the case of biofertilizers and biopesticides, these are derived from the living organisms. These living organisms can be microorganisms or macroorganisms, means can be derived from the larger organisms, might be from plant or might be from animals. So, a fertilizer which is being derived from a living being, bio means life, is known as a biofertilizer. In this case, why this has got such a kind of significance in this era? As part of sustainable development, biofertilizers and biopesticides play a very major role. The reason behind it is, these biofertilizers and biopesticides helps in maintaining the quality of the soil, helps in maintaining the soil organisms which are essential. So, when we are dependent upon chemical artificial fertilizers which are being synthesized in the factories artificially, whether biopesticides or biofertilizers are considered, the disadvantages with chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides is, the synthesized artificially prepared biofertilizers, the fiber content in the organic composition or the fiber content in the fertilizers will be less. So, the water retaining capability and the organic composition supply capability of these synthesized fertilizers will not be sufficient enough to maintain the water level. Apart from this, they will not be able to provide a kind of conditions required for the development of soil organisms. Soil organisms are microscopic and macroscopic. Microscopic soil organisms like bacteria and fungi, which are essential to degrade the dead plants and animals, to enrich the soil, to mineralize the soil. So, the macroorganisms, soil macroorganisms like the earthworms, termites, ants, rodents are essential because they continuously, for example, the earthworm feeds on the soil. In this process, it further breaks the larger organic composition in the form of humus into mineralize, breakdown into smaller components of this organic matter, which is being made available for the plants to assimilate. So, in this process, when the pesticides which are chemicals are being spread over the crops, percolate into the soil, kills all these organisms. Each and every organism in the soil has got a specific function. For example, bacteria has got the function to degrade, decompose the dead plants and animals and mix the essential nutrition to the soil. So, in the absence of this bacteria, the addition of nutrition in the process of decomposition of dead plants and animals does not happen. Apart from this, another example is, for example, we have got a Rhizobium or Azotobacter soil which is living in the soil, Azotobacter bacteria which is living in the soil. When they are being killed by these pesticides, the natural way of fixing atmospheric nitrogen to the soil does not happen. So, you need to compulsory depend upon chemical fertilizers bought from the factory. So, the disadvantage, as I have told you regarding this, and you need to incur more finance as part of input. But when biofertilizers which are synthesized by the farmer himself in the farmland, reduces the amount of investment in terms of fertilizers. Apart from that, he is going to maintain the essential condition required for the soil in terms of maintaining the essential soil organisms required for maintaining the soil life. So, this is the significance of biofertilizers and biopesticides. So, in this context, as you know, the macronutrition to the plant, the fertilizers which are essential, the majorly are known as macronutrition to the plant. As you know, they are being described as NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium are the major essential macronutrition to the plant, and the rest of the micronutrients like zinc, aluminum, zinc, iron, etc., which are required to the plants for the development, are micronutrients required for the growth of the plant. How these macronutrition, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, how they are being supplied naturally with biofertilizers, let us discuss. So, in this case, the major biofertilizers are, for example, the nitrogenous biofertilizers which are being supplied from the decaying organic matter derived from plants and animals both. So, these major fertilizers are being classified into nitrogen and phosphorus biofertilizers. So, there must be a balanced supply of these fertilizers to the plants. So, phosphorus is also an important factor of plant growth, because phosphorus, which is essential as a biofertilizer, unlike nitrogen biofertilizers, phosphorus biofertilizers can be used for almost all type of crops and soil. It is a basic essential fertilizer required for the plant or any living being, because it is one of the basic essential element to form DNA. So, without phosphorus, there is no possibility of formation of a cell. So, that is the reason why phosphorus is one of the major essential component for manufacturing the cell structure of a living being. Apart from this, nitrogen plays a very major role in terms of protein formation, because apart from carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, the fundamental element to make protein in plant and animal body is nitrogen. So, this nitrogen is not directly cannot be assimilated directly by the plants. They need to be converted, the atmospheric nitrogen need to be converted into nitrates, then only they can be used by the plants. So, this process of fixation of nitrogen is being done by microorganisms like azola or azotobacter or Rhizobium. These are certain microorganisms living in the soil, helps in fixing the atmospheric nitrogen, making them available to the plants in the form of nitrates, so that proteins can be synthesized by the plants. That is the major significance of microorganisms in the soil, which can be used as a biofertilizer development. For example, mycorrhizal fungi preferentially withdraws minerals from organic matter for the plant, whereas cyanobacteria are characterized by the property of nitrogen fixation. Azospirillum is a nitrogen fixing bacteria that live around the roots of higher plants but do not develop an intimate relationship with the plant. So, these are certain microorganisms which helps in fixing the atmospheric nitrogen. So, some of them live in symbiotic association with the plant roots, some live free in the soil, fixing the atmospheric nitrogen, making the nitrogen available to the plants. So, they are free living soil bacteria that perform nitrogen fixation. They are saprotrophic anaerobic such as Clostridium, Azotobacter. These are some of the examples of bacteria which helps in fixing the atmospheric nitrogen. Among all the types of biofertilizers, Rhizobium and Azospirillum are the most widely used biofertilizers. So, these are known as rhizophores. So, these are microorganisms living in the soil, makes some organic matter and inorganic matter disintegrate and make the fertilizers or minerals available in elemental form where the plants can assimilate. These are being done by these microorganisms living in the soil, helps in the plant growth and development. Phosphorus is one of the essential nutrients for plant growth and development. Phosphate solubilizing microorganisms hydrolyze insoluble phosphorus compounds to the soluble form of uptake by plants. Many fungi and bacteria are used for the purpose, such as Penicillium, Aspergillus, Bacillus, seudomonas. These are some of the examples which are used for the availability of phosphorus to the plant. So, in this context, you need to mention the microorganisms which are responsible for fixing nitrogenous fertilizers and the microorganisms which are responsible for fixing phosphorus fertilizers. You must be able to clear-cutly differentiate the microorganisms which are fixing nitrogenous and phosphorus fertilizers, as I have specified to you being displayed. Rhizobium, azola and azotobacter and the blue-green algae are some of the microorganisms which fix the atmospheric nitrogen. Rhizobium are soil bacteria that can fix nitrogen found in the air inside the roots. Rhizobia can invade extended cells of the cortex and then differentiate into nitrogen fixing bacterioid. So, these are microorganisms which are living in symbiotic association with the plants. They live in the roots of the plants and make the nitrogen available to the plants. So, these are the root nodules which are providing symbiotic association to the microorganisms like rhizobium fixing the atmospheric nitrogen. So, these are microorganisms in the soil fixing atmospheric nitrogen to the plants. So, in the case of azospirillum, the microorganisms fix the atmospheric nitrogen and makes it available to the plant in a symbiotic manner. So, for example, rhizobium is in a symbiotic association with the plant, but in the case of azospirillum is not in a symbiotic association. It is in the soil without a symbiotic association to the plant and fixing the atmospheric nitrogen directly to the soil. So, this is an example of a symbiotic presence in the soil. This is azospirillum. Family Rhizobium and the plant host, with this carbon is supplied to differentiate bacterial cells termed bacterioids in the form of dicarboxylic acid. So, these plants are supplying to this bacteria the essential food in the form of carbon, dicarboxylic acid. In return, they supply the essential nitrogen to the plants through the atmospheric fixation. Azola is a type of microorganism that mineralizes the soil nitrogen rapidly, and it is made available to the crop in a very short period. So, what is happening here? Mineralization means you have got minerals in compounds. So, sometimes the plants will not be able to observe the complex larger molecule which is in compound. A compound is being formed by a combination of many number of elements together form a compound. So, when these microorganisms dissociate the bonds and mineralize into individual elements, then the plant will be able to absorb as a nutrition more efficiently. So, in this way bacteria and microorganisms play a very major role to make the essential micro and macronutrients available in the soil by mineralizing, means breaking the larger compounds into smaller elements where the plants can assimilate. Nitrogen released from azola is also but steady. So, what is happening here is, in the artificial fertilizers, in the case of urea for example, a nitrogen fertilizers, there is sudden rapid pumping up of nitrogen to the plants. In this process, the plants all of a sudden grow without strength and they fall because of because of a breeze or wind. But when the fertilizers are being supplied with biofertilizers, the essential nitrogen and phosphorus or potassium is not being supplied all of a sudden. There is a gradual natural mechanism of supply, so that the rate of growth of plant will be coherent with the strength of the plant, where they can withstand the gale or the wind possible. Nitrogen releases from azola is slow but steady without leaching losses. So, leaching, when the weathering and erosion and the leaching dissolving rate is more, what happens is they will be easily be dissolved and drained away before the plants absorb. So, when there is slow dissolving nature, the plants will have sufficient amount of time to absorb over a long duration of period rather than a short duration of period. It serves as a protein rich feed to fish and poultry. So, what is happening is this azola, when it is been cultivated in a kind of algae which can be used as a feed in poultry and fish. The Azotobacter has the ability to improve the seed germination and plant growth of specific plants. See this here in this case, the Azotobacter is a bacteria which is being used for a different purpose. Here this is being used for an effective seed germination. For example, when the farmers buy the seeds from the shops, what happens is the percentage of seeds which can germinate might be very less, but when the seeds are being treated with azola and they are being sowed, the percentage of seeds which germinate to grow into crops are more. A different application apart from fertilizers in the case of azola. These microorganisms can also benefit crops by nitrogen fixation. So, there is a double-edged advantage here. One, it is enhancing the rate of germination. Second, it is fixing the atmospheric nitrogen. These are the two advantages we have got. The release of growth and by the promoting substances. So, what is happening here is they are also releasing certain growth factors. They have evolved a number of metabolic mechanisms to allow it to fix nitrogen, enzyme nitrogenase. So, the enzyme nitrogenase is responsible for this. So, they are also helpful for the growth factor of the plants. So, azola with an algae being cultivated, which can be used as a fertilizers, fodder to certain cattle and even fish. So, in this algae, the bacteria is cultivated in a farm for these different applications. Finally, the blue-green algae known as BGA contains tiny gas vacuoles in their cells, which regulate them to float on the water surface or sink to the bottom in response to changing of light and nutrient availability. They can form a symbiotic relationship with azola and fix the atmospheric nitrogen. The BGA is associated with the azola. So, the blue-green algae is in association with azola for fixing the atmospheric nitrogen. Another variant, Anabina, converts inert atmospheric nitrogen into a usable form such as nitrate or ammonia. See this. So, these are the list of different kinds of microorganisms which are living in the soil. So, these are very much important because they are naturally fixing the essential fertilizers to the plants. But the problem with the modern intensive agriculture is because of high intense usage of pesticides, these microorganisms are being killed and the soil is losing its vitality and losing the soil microorganisms which are essential for the health of the soil, for the good production of the crops. Anabina coexists with a fern called azola, just now which you have observed an algae floating on the water is an azola, is known as azola, is a fern algae which supplies nitrogen to the plants. The endophyte. So, an endophyte is an endosymbiont, often a bacterium or a fungus that lives within a plant for at least part of its life cycle without causing apparent diseases. A bacterium resides within the tissue of a plant for at least a part of its life without causing apparent disease. So, this is what is known as endophyte, which fix the atmospheric nitrogen. So, this is known as endophyte. Endo means inside. So, it lives in the roots of the plants. Biopesticides are also known as biological pesticides or natural pest control agents that are obtained from natural substances. They come from minerals, plants and bacteria. Using biopesticides has advantages over using conventional pesticides because biopesticides are less toxic to the environment and natural life. So, as I have discussed initially, the advantage of biofertilizers and pesticides, these are less toxic to the environment. Microbial pesticides may contain specific type of microorganisms such as fungus, bacteria and even protozoa. So, you are using certain natural substances as pesticides. So, you must be able to differentiate what is a fertilizer and what is a pesticide. A fertilizer is a nutrition to the plant. A pesticide is a chemical which kills the pest which are causing harm to the plants, like insects which are causing problem to the crops are known as pesticides. They may contain specific type of microorganisms such as fungus, bacteria and even protozoans are used as pesticides to the plant, killing certain insects which are infecting the crops, and each type can be used to utilize or target a specific type of pesticides. In the end, the result that shows up can be significantly noticed. For example, some type of fungi can kill certain type of unwanted weeds, while various types of bacteria can kill different types of insect larvae like flies, moths and mosquitoes. So, for different types of biopesticides are used against different types of pests. The classic example of a biopesticide is Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria. So, as you know, the classic example here in the case of Bt cotton, in the case of Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria, the gene responsible for this bacteria is causing a disease to a bollworm. So, this Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria has got a gene which can cause a disease to bollworm. Bollworm is a pest to cotton plant. So, with genetic engineering and recombinant DNA technology, the gene in Bacillus thuringiensis which is causing disease to bollworm is, with the help of biotechnology, with the transgenic technology, the gene is being incorporated into the Bt cotton plant. So, when the bollworm larva eats the cotton plant fruit or the tender leaves, automatically, because the gene containing disease is in the leaves of the Bt cotton plant, which is obtained from a bacteria causing disease to bollworm, the bollworm is been killed. These biopesticides, the advantage with biopesticides are they are pest specific. Pest specific means they kill only the pest causing harm to the crop, whereas in the case of chemical pesticides synthesized in the factories, what happens is they are not pest specific. When you spray pesticides, it not only kills the pests like mosquitoes etc. causing harm to the plant, they also kill spiders which does not cause harm to the plant, or they also kill the earthworms and microorganisms living in the soil when they are being percolated into the soil. So, that is the disadvantage with chemical pesticides, but the advantage with biofertilizers, biopesticides are they are pest specific, means they only kill certain organisms which are acting as pests to the plants. The different strains of this bacteria produce different mix of proteins and kill specific insect larvae. That is the main advantage with Bacillus thuringiensis. So, these are the different species here: Bacillus 𝗵𝗵𝗺𝗃, Bacillus lentimorphus. These are some species of Bacillus microorganisms which can be used as a pesticide against certain pests. These type of Bt, so control moth larvae on plants, and the strains are made specifically for a larvae of mosquitoes and flies. So, there are certain bacteria which are been genetically modified strains which can infect larvae of mosquitoes and flies which cause harm to the plant. The Bt produces a protein which binds to the larvae gut receptors and causes it to starve. So, what happens is these bacteria infect these larvae, and what happens is the larvae will not be able to feed and finally die. This is a different way of application of biopesticides. Each biopesticide consists of a repellent that can drive the insect away from the plant. natural insect repellent. So, what happens is there are certain pheromones etc. being released by the insects when they are being used. What happens is you can repel the pests which are attacking the crops, or certain female pheromones which are being collected can be used as a traps of these pesticides, insects, and avoid infection to the crops. Reduces their food intake until they die for starvation. In female insects or pests, the ovipositor is a specialized organ that deposits eggs. So, ovipositor is a kind of organ in the reproductive system in the insect which is responsible for laying eggs. So, with this kind of infections caused by the biopesticides will not allow the insects to lay eggs. Some plants contain oviposition deterrent pheromones. So, they release certain chemicals, they do not allow the insect to lay eggs, which prevents the insects from laying eggs of the plant, so that the insects or the pests will not reproduce and proliferate, causing harm to the plants. So, advantages of biofertilizers. So, what are the advantages of biofertilizers? The advantage of biofertilizers is it can reduce the amount of input in terms of fertilizers can be reduced. About 20 to 30% of input of chemical fertilizers can be reduced. All of a sudden, throughout the country we may not be able to shift to biofertilizers, but to an extent when we are supplying, what happens is it will be a kind of sustainable development, and the consumption of chemical fertilizers and pesticides to an extent can be reduced. That is one of the main advantages. There is certain disadvantages where they may not be able to control all the pests. That is one of the main disadvantage with biofertilizers, and the production of the crop to an extent will be reduced when relatively compared with artificial chemical fertilizers and pesticides, but these are sustainable. The supply of the plants with 25% of nitrogen and phosphorus by replacing the chemical fertilizers, which can deteriorate the environment and also cause harmful impact on the living being. So, what is happening here is, with this the harmful pesticides can be reduced, or the utilization of chemical fertilizers can be reduced by shifting to biofertilizers to an extent of 25%. So, the input cost is being reduced. So, these biofertilizers and pesticides are helpful especially in drought management and soil-borne diseases, and also prevents from damaging the natural soil, so that the soil organisms essential are being preserved to maintain the soil quality. Since biofertilizers have excellent buffering capabilities and they can contain organic matter, they can balance the pH in the soil and reduce the acidity. So, buffer capacity means in the context of soil, in terms of maintaining the essential pH level, they can all of a sudden the pH of the soil cannot be changed. They will be maintaining the essential pH required for the soil for the plant growth. And apart from this, the water holding capability when you are using biofertilizers and biopesticides will be more, and the irrigation essential can be reduced. They help in better aeration. So, aeration here means the availability of air in the soil, the spaces between the soil particles is being filled with air, which is essential for the root growth to supply oxygen. So, these biofertilizers, and what happens is, because of the fiber content, organic matter present in the fertilizers, make soil pores available, supplying essential oxygen to the plant root growth effectively. So, these are the main advantages of biofertilizers, and that is the reason why this is considered as a sustainable source for the crop cultivation. So, friends, in the next episode we shall discuss another topic in science and technology. Thank you.